and I'm sure you guys have tons of them. So we'll do that. And just so everyone knows, we are recording this today so that folks that cannot join us, which there are quite a few, can watch this at a later date. And this will be posted on our Water Hub as well in the future. Let's jump right into implementation. So those of you that have been following this or have been involved know we've been working on this since 2016 with the Bear River Data Model Pilot Study. We've tried to coordinate as well as we can with all the other state agencies to make sure we're not duplicating efforts and we know what water data is out there and what isn't. One of the things you should know is if you do water work in the state, understanding this data and how it all fits together is actually going to be really beneficial for you in the future as well. So a little bit about the commission for those that don't know. We do all kinds of planning as well as construction projects. Here we are the state's water planning agency. We do everything from river basin planning to in-stream flow studies, reservoirs, master planning, that kind of thing. All of them have a fairly significant investment in GIS products and data. And so part of this is figuring out how to leverage all the data that's collected with our studies. Some of the studies, an example of some of the data that we do collect in these. So for river basin plans, watershed studies, master plans, in-stream flow, you can see that the data we collect is often fairly similar across the board on a lot of these projects. And we collect a lot of data, and we, through this process, have tried to figure out what data is most important to our long-term business needs here at the agency. Some of it that you will collect is really important just for that project. And we haven't tried to categorize everything or standardize everything that you might need for your project or your sponsor needs for their project. Only the ones that make the most sense for us to keep track of long-term or on a statewide basis. And others aren't already developing, or other agencies are not already developing. So if it's not in our templates, it doesn't mean you don't necessarily need to provide that data. If your contract requires it or your project requires it, you still need to do it. It's just not going to be in our core database and template. And just the last on implementation, last slide. You know, currently we collect a lot of different data sets for each project. We have project data that comes in, collected by different consulting firms. It all is a little bit different with a little bit of names, and it's developed at that project level. Where we're going with this all is towards a master statewide water GIS that in the near future, you will be able to start your projects with data instead of develop it at that project level. What this will do is help leverage those individual investments we're making now in smaller project data into a larger database. This should lower the individual project costs, reduce duplication of effort, and provides more consistency and efficiency in our project development. So hopefully by next time this year, you will start with data instead of have to develop it on your own. Okay. So we want to get right into the deliverables. We know this is probably why most of you have tuned in. We want to help you figure out how to deliver things right the first time. Resubmittals, we know you don't like to resubmit things. It takes a lot of time and effort and communication. But we've worked really hard over the last few months to try to update the documentation and make the GIS side of the house as easy as possible. And so with that, I'll let Mabel tell you about our documentation.
Good morning. So much of what you'll need to know is about data delivery and development can be found in our GIS technical memo. The memo is a resource developed to implement Water Development's GIS framework that provides step-by-step directions for accessing tools and templates, as well as guidelines and standards for populating and submitted data required by your contract. The previous version of the memo, as Peter mentioned, has been updated and is hot linked here and available on the Water Hub. The webinar presented today follows this document. The meat of the document is about 36 pages, so it's not too hefty to read through. When you begin your projects, or if you get stuck using the tools or looking for the templates, this is a really great place to start. Components of the documents are listed in this slide, and reviewing the table of contents, you can see the document includes a brief introduction, which includes 8 tips for using the standards. We did work to include those 8 tips into this webinar today. The map package download instructions are presented in just a single page, so not too heavy of reading to go through those. The e-permit and point of use and point of diversion conversion tools for GIS provided with 10 pages of step-by-step instructions. Also detailed instructions for populating the 14 feature classes, as well as for linking tables. And this comprises over half of the primary document. Also included are some helpful appendices. The State Engineer's Office provided guidelines for their e-permit database to explore water right records. The guidelines from the State Engineer's Office include tips for searching, definitions of terms, as well as permit code modifiers. Finally, Appendix D provides written documentation of all the domain values and codes. These domains are set up as drop-downs in the map package templates. So this document is really designed to help you provide the deliverables based on your Water Development Office contract specifications.
Excellent. So the documentation, the new documentation is much cleaner, easier to access, and a little bit shorter as well. So that's always good. One of the questions that I've gotten a few times lately is, where are the GIS requirements in the scope of work or the contract? So I just wanted to cover that real quickly. I know it's very exciting, but you can find the GIS requirements in the contract under Attachment A, which is the scope of services. And if you are doing in a contract, a very recent contract from 2018 or even 2019, it's going to be under project requirements, which, if you look at that little image on the right, is section C2, which is computer models, geographic information systems, statements of assumptions, and project work file. And if you go down to B there, it just gives you very basic information about talking to your project manager, about getting the templates, which we're going to show you today, how to do metadata, real basic metadata for everything, and the mapping. So for current contracts, or most recent contracts, will be under the boilerplate under C2B. If you have a contract from 2017 and even some of the 2018 contracts, it's GIS deliverables is a standalone task. And so you'll see the same, basically the same information there as you would in the boilerplate under C for the older contracts. The last thing I wanted to talk about is contract number. This is one of the fields in most or many of the layers that that are part of our templates, and this is something that will help us keep track of the data that's developed with each project in the long term, and something that's really important for all those GIS deliverables. And this can be found on the first page of the signed contract. It's also found on the notice to proceed. I don't know a lot of you GIS folks that actually have a copy of the notice to proceed, but you know, that might happen sometimes. Or at least you know what to ask for. And it's also on all the invoices that are sent to our office. So there's a few places to find it. And if you still aren't sure, feel free to call us or talk to your project manager about that as well. So, deliverables. The GIS is required with the draft deliverables. People have been really good about this, making sure these things come in with the draft reports, etc. But it's really important because we do have a checklist that all the project managers have access to go through the GIS data to make sure that there's metadata attached, that the actual GIS templates are used. Those templates vary by project type and by project needs, right? So you're not always going to fill everything out in each of the templates. But one of the things that you will always need to do, no matter what project it is the there's two layers. It's called potential projects and study area. Those are the two feature classes or layers that pretty much every project would need to submit with their draft GIS deliverables. So if you have a map in your report that has some points on where the potential projects that are discussed are, it needs to be in the GIS. That's what that potential projects is. So that's real important for the future of what we're doing here. So please make sure and get that one filled in. We're also looking to see that the proper attributes are filled in. And finally, remember to please submit the data as a geodatabase or shapefiles, but mostly a geodatabase. And you do not need to package things up as a map package. That is nice because it transports easy, but it adds an extra step and a level of complication here in the office. So please just submit it as a geodatabase. And again, if you have questions about this, you can write things in the chat box, and we will we'll try to address those as we go. Or you can wait until the end here. We'll have some time to answer questions. And you know how much I love metadata. If you know Aragon from Lord of the Rings, you know he doesn't lie. We talk a lot about metadata, but we don't get a lot of it, and so we just want to emphasize that it is important, and it's a surefire way to get your deliverables returned to you. Is to submit it without metadata, and we're not even asking for like the full FGDC compliant metadata. We're just asking for the very simple purpose and description section of our catalog to be filled out. If you added any codes that aren't already part of the template, we need to have those as well. It is the only way to let your data live on beyond you. So you want a legacy, that's what you need to do. Make sure you have metadata. And I'll show you when we get into the demo how we've kind of already filled in a lot of the data that you use in the templates. And so you just have to fill in some blanks. So hopefully it should be really quick and dirty and easy. So that's enough of the lecturing. Let's talk about access.
All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and talk about accessing and using the templates and tools. All the templates and tools are available on the Water Hub through the Words office. So we'll go ahead and navigate there. So this is a resource for our partners and consultants. This is the homepage for the Water Hub. The elements of standards are listed here. The GIS standards, the geodatabase templates, the base data, and the ArcGIS tools. You can also navigate to a link which includes the standards and provides descriptions of those standards. So the first thing that is listed is the GIS framework plan. If you want to know more, have more detail on the water GIS we are developing and our process for implementation, this is the place to look for that document. You can download it here. The tech memo is included here. The geodatabase schema or diagram also included. Also tools for developing the GIS data sets will be here. There's a story map that's been developed that has some demos. This presentation will be posted here. And also there is a kind of a brief document, the GIS standards handout and overview. This is also the location where you will go to download any of the geodatabase templates for your projects. They are downloaded by project type, and they will come to you as a map package. Common base data sets are included as well. These are the NHD layers and the SEO, State Engineer's Office stream layers. And then finally, the e-permit conversion tools along with the PLSS layers can be downloaded from this website. So the data framework was developed based on the common sets of data which are gathered during water development projects. There are 14 total core feature classes or layers. Only 13 of these will be used by projects, on projects and by consultants. They're organized into 4 data sets: hydrology, water systems, assessment, and water projects. And we've tried to note on each of these slides the reference back to the GIS standards technical memo on the pages where you can get further descriptions. So not all projects, as we mentioned, are required to cover all of the feature classes. The feature classes that are required by all projects, as Peter mentioned, are study area and potential projects. The required projects are noted on in section 4.3 of the GIS technical memorandum. We'll go ahead and go to the tech memo. And section 4.3. So this includes each of the different study types and lists the feature classes, a description of the feature classes, and then any special notes regarding those. For basin planning and watershed studies, 10 of 13 of the feature classes are required. Irrigation district master plans include 8 of the feature classes. And then finally, drinking water master plans and in-stream flow studies require 6 of the different feature classes. And when you download the map templates, they will just include the geodatabase with those feature classes. So tip 2 in the tech memo is to use the project-specific templates. The geodatabase templates are required to prepare the core data sets which meet the contractual requirements for GIS data deliverables. The templates, again, are available as map packages by project or study type on the Water Hub, and they're hot linked via this screenshot. There are 2 ways to open and use the map packages after you download them. You can double-click the map package, and it will automatically default and open itself in a location in your C users drive. Alternatively, you can run the extract package tool in ARC Toolbox from either ArcMap or ArcCatalog. This will allow the map package to be extracted to a user-defined location versus the default location under your C users. The paths and instructions for this all start on page 8 of the tech memo. So next we have a screenshot of all of the layers in the Geodatabase as it shows up in ArcCatalog. As shown here, this is a master that includes all 13 feature classes. Again, your extracted map package will only include the feature classes relevant to your project. As a reminder, there are 2 feature classes which are required for all projects. Study area, which is the outer boundary of your project area, and then potential projects that are identified in the study area. When you extract the template, the database will not include any records and will be fully populated by the contractors. So we have mentioned the ePermit conversion tool. This is a tool that will take the data that's downloaded as Excel files from the ePermit database and bring it into and create a spatial feature class. It utilizes ArcGIS Model Builder to streamline the process of creating point of diversion and point of use feature classes. The tool was updated in 2019, so if you have a previous version, you will want to download the new tools and download the specific tool based on the ArcMap version that you have. It is compatible with all ArcMap 10+ versions. What it does is it takes the tabular Excel data and plots point of use to quarter section, as shown here, and then it plots point of diversion to lat long. Again, the technical memo includes detailed instructions on how to use this tool. As a FYI, the point of use and point of diversion data sets are 2 data sets water development is working to develop statewide. So in the future, we will be able to provide you with a populated template, and contractors will be able to use the data as is or update it based on study findings. So next we'll go into a demo of some of the ArcCatalog features, take a look at the templates and the improved documents, and we'll transition over to let Peter present these.
Thanks, Mabel. Let's your screen. I'm going to present from my office.
Okay. And you are presenting.
Okay. Well, hopefully everyone can see my screen, which is a shot of ArcCatalog 10. And you can hear me okay, I assume. Great. Thanks, Steve. So just wanted to run through a few things in ArcCatalog that many of you will already know about. Some of you won't. Hopefully there's a couple of things in here that might inspire you. Just to go quickly into the Geodatabase template, on the left here you see a copy of the full template master, which is in a Geodatabase form. Got the assessment, hydrology, water projects, and water systems data sets that Mabel already talked about. You also have a set of 11 different tables, and I just wanted to touch base on those quickly. The way to understand what those tables would be related to in this database is based on the first letter in those tables. So if it starts with an A, it would be related or joined to a feature in the assessment data set. If it starts with a WS, it would relate back to water systems. So that's kind of how our coding is on those tables. Pretty basic stuff, but it's worth a mention. For those of you that really want to geek out on the database, we have developed a new Geodatabase Diagram with the schema of the full master data set. It looks like a lot, and it is, but it is like 42 inches wide. But the previous one, if you remember, and I know some of you have it on the wall, was 76 inches wide. So I think we've skimmed it down and we've cleaned it up significantly. But in here you will find all the relationships that are inferred into that geodatabase, as well as and this is probably the most important part, is the format of each of these fields. And so if you are setting up to go out and do an inventory of some kind of a irrigation system or a water system, and you're taking GPS points, preloading your data dictionary with these fields, or at least the right formats, is super important and will save you a lot of effort when moving the data into our templates. So anyway, so this is here for you all to use as needed, and that's also posted on the Water Hub. The domains are actually in the tech memo, as Mabel mentioned. They are not on this poster, but we do have a little sign next to the fields that do have a domain already set. So that's the poster that's available to you all. The other thing, so jumping back to our catalog, I'm over in the contents pane over here. We also have preview and description tabs in this section. And I'm going to show you the structures feature class. Right now it's empty, so you're not going to see anything on the screen, but if there were things in there, you would be able to see it. The attributes are in here, but there's nothing in them, obviously, because this is a template. But this is really what I wanted to show you. Under the description tab, where you would create your metadata, we have already filled in much of the information that you need to provide to us for each of these feature classes. And so your tags are already built. Under the summary, you want to describe why the data was developed, what's the project name, what's the extent of it. So anything in brackets you would fill out. But if you're wondering what this feature class is, under the description, we've tried to get into what it is. So this is WDO structures, and the description is water infrastructure point features that are part of irrigation, reservoir, or drinking water systems. So this one can be widely used for a lot of different types of projects. It includes water diversions, wells, meters, spillways, storage tanks, and lots of other different features. I'll show you what's in that domain in a minute here. You'd want to fill in what the ground condition is, what the date of those ground conditions are. So you see the date in the brackets. Wherever those brackets are, you need to fill in. If there's different types of uses for this feature class that you've used, you'd want to describe that. If there was original source that you pulled the points from, you'd want to indicate that here in this description as well. So anyway, all of the feature classes have this stuff defined. Conveyance would be, pipelines and canals, etc. POU is place of use for water rights, point of diversion, water rights again, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that will help you figure out what to put in each of these feature classes, because that information's already filled out. The other thing I wanted to show you is new with this version. It's this table down here that I highlighted called project specific table name. So if you have a bunch of attributes and fields that you want to record that are not part of our core data set or the templates, this would be one place you could add those fields. You could just have a whole table full of information. Maybe you have addresses for a meter, or accounting records for the last 10 years for meter. This would be a great place to list all that information that would be associated with that structure feature, for instance. Maybe you have diversion records. Maybe you have a billing address that you want to assign for each of those, so you can send your bills and know where those bills are going. You could put it in here. You just have to rename these this table, and there's a description of how to rename it in here in the summary. So anyway, just wanted to show you that. That's new this year, and hopefully that will be helpful to folks. So moving on, I want to show one of the how to move data from one source, or maybe a GPS unit, into our templates. Here is an example of a water system, a drinking water system near Pinedale. You can see we have a bunch of valves, these butterfly valves. We've got the meters all mapped out. But you look at the attributes of the valves, we've got an ID for them, so that's helpful, but the name of the field is different. They've got a valve type, which is 19. We've got a valve size, we've got elevation, we've got the status. So what is the condition of it? This one's operational. So we have a bunch of fields associated with each of these valves, but those features or those fields don't match what's in our template, because if you look at WDO structures, you can see, you know, our fields are quite a bit different than those. We have structure type, we have condition, we have an ID, which is that site name. Sorry, my fields are huge, which is helpful for some things. But anyway, the fields don't match. So how do you move the data that you've already collected into these? You could go in here and start adding points and populate it. So this one has a domain associated with it. So this would be, you know, actually this is a meter. You know, you go in there and add all this stuff manually. That would be a huge headache. You could also copy things. You could just copy features and dump them in here, but your fields aren't going to transfer. You're going to have the points, but the fields will not transfer. So there is a pretty useful ability that's built into Art Catalog that I didn't know existed. And so some of you probably have used this before, but I haven't. So if you wanted to load all your valves into WDO structures, you can come over here. We're in our catalog again, and say you want to add them all to this feature class. You right click on the empty template. It could be populated as well. You hit load data, and it brings up this handy little wizard that allows you to migrate all of your features and map the fields into the template. So I think we were looking at valves. Add this in. And then you can see here's the source field that came with the original feature class, and here's what's in the templates. We know we have a match between an ID. It's differently, but it's the same thing. The structure name we don't have, but we have the type of structure, valve type. It's a valve, and the condition of it is operational, so that's good enough. Run through, add those features, and then hope they show up like that. So it's pretty slick. You can keep adding. So then next I would go and add all the meter points using that same load tool. Again, go into our catalog, right click, load data. Anyway, it's helpful if you haven't used it before. There's other ways to do it, but that is one good way to do it, so that you can map out the fields from one feature class to another. After you did that, obviously your attribute table still has contract ID. I mentioned that early in the talk. That's something you'd want to fill. You can just go in there, field calculator, write in your ID there, populate those, horizontal accuracy. But here's all that information, right? Valves, condition is operational, site numbers transferred over. So it's helpful. So I am going to pass this back to Mabel. Okay. Who's gonna wrap us up from here.
So we're wrapping up here, and just want to chat a little bit about the resources that are available should you have questions on working with your data sets. Again, the GIS Standards Tech Memo is a really good place to start. There's more demos in the story map. Also, you can just give us a call. It may be sometimes easiest to give us a call, staff here at Water Development Office, and also staff over at WORDS. I do want to thank you for participating today. Today we reviewed the standards, we explained data delivery, also talked about accessing the tools and templates. We can still take questions via chat, and our contact information is also listed here if you think of something later that you'd like to get in touch with us about, or as you get into projects. Feel free to give us a call at the numbers listed previously, or drop us an email. So water management is critical to the Rocky Mountain States, and we need to understand water use and supplies to assess project feasibility. Our water GIS is a key piece to this, and our goal with the consultants is to improve water data infrastructure to enable more sustainable management of on-the-ground infrastructure. And so we appreciate the consultants' help with this, and hope we'll be able to provide some tools to our partners and consultants in the future that will help us do our jobs more efficiently. So, any questions? Did we have any in the chat?
You know, I don't see any in the chat, but and also if you're on the phone or you have a mic on your computer, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. We can hang out for a couple minutes if people think of things that they want to ask. But you can also talk to your project manager if you have very project-specific type projects, or refer back to the contract to figure out if it's something that you all need to do or how you need to do it, or which of the templates or the feature classes that you need to use. It's right there. So yeah, so we can jump back to the previous slide so you can see the phone numbers. The people down at Water Resources Data System, WORDS, they are very friendly, despite what everyone says. So please call them. Chris, Rosemary, Tony, any of them can help as well if you don't want to talk to either of us.